That dress is going to make someone believe a lie tonight, Evelyn whispered, and by midnight, the most powerful man in New York would be the only person in the ballroom who knew the truth. Rain tapped against the 40-foot windows of Hale Manor as if the storm wanted inside. Beyond the glass, Manhattan glittered beneath low clouds, all silver rooftops and blurred headlights, while a string quartet played beneath chandeliers bright enough to make every diamond in the ballroom look like a captured star. I was 26 years old and $11,000 behind on my nursing school tuition, and I was carrying a tray of champagne that cost more than my monthly rent. My name was Claire Bennett. At least, that was the name printed on the small white card pinned above my heart. Most guests never looked at it. To them, I was simply the waitress in black shoes who appeared when their glasses were empty and disappeared before they had to remember I was human. Table 9 needs another bottle of sparkling water, Evelyn said through the small headset tucked beneath her dark hair. She was the event manager, my best friend, and the only reason I had gotten the shift. And try not to look terrified. I am not terrified, I whispered. I am calculating how many hours I would have to work to replace one of these glasses. 2 weeks. That was not comforting. She smiled, but her eyes never stopped moving. Flowers, lighting, servers, place settings. The 100 small details that could turn a perfect evening into a disaster. The Hale family's Centennial Gala was the largest private charity event in the city that year. 400 guests, 2 United States senators, 3 movie stars. Enough private security to make the estate feel less like a mansion and more like a country with its own borders. The Hale family had built its fortune in shipping, real estate, and businesses nobody discussed too clearly. Their name appeared on hospitals, libraries, and university buildings. It was also spoken more quietly after dark. I had heard the rumors about Roman Hale. Everyone had. He had inherited control of the family after his father died and expanded its influence without giving a single interview. Some people called him a businessman. Others called him a king. Evelyn called him the reason every employee had signed a confidentiality agreement before entering the property. I had no intention of meeting him. My plan was simple. Serve drinks. Avoid important people. Collect my paycheck. Go home. Plans are fragile things. Mine lasted 37 minutes. I was crossing behind a group of donors when a man stepped backward without looking. His elbow struck my tray. One champagne flute tipped, then another. I caught the tray before it fell, but a glass of red wine slid over the edge and emptied down the front of my uniform. The liquid soaked through the white shirt beneath my vest, cold against my skin. Conversation stopped around me for half a second. The man glanced at the stain, then at my face, as if deciding whether I was worth an apology. "You should watch where you are going," he said. Then he turned back to his friends. My cheeks burned. I wanted to tell him exactly who had moved without looking. I wanted to ask whether wealth made mirrors unnecessary. Instead, I lowered my eyes and said the 2 words service workers learn to use even when they have done nothing wrong. "I am sorry." Evelyn found me in the service hallway 3 minutes later, pressing paper towels against the stain. "You cannot go back out like that," she said. "I know. We do not have another uniform in your size." "Then send me home." "I cannot. We are already short 2 people." She looked toward the wardrobe room, then back at me. I recognized the expression on her face. It was the same look she had worn in college before convincing me to climb through a library window after we locked ourselves out during final examinations. "No," I said. "You do not even know what I am thinking. Your ideas always begin with that look and end with me apologizing to someone." 10 minutes later, I stood in front of a mirror wearing a silver evening gown that did not belong to me. It had been delivered for a singer scheduled to perform after dinner, but her flight from Chicago had been canceled because of the storm. The dress was simple by gala standards, fitted at the waist, with soft sleeves and a skirt that brushed the tops of my shoes. My hair was still pinned in the practical knot I wore for work. Most of my makeup had disappeared during the shift. Nothing about me felt glamorous. And yet, when Evelyn fastened the small pearl clasp at the back of my neck, the woman in the mirror looked like someone who had never counted grocery prices. "It is only until your shirt dries," she said. "Stay in the staff corridors." Then she handed me a cream-colored envelope sealed with dark red wax. "Take this to Richard Alden in the East Reception Room. He is the Foundation's chief financial officer. This is the final donor list." "Why me?" "Because everyone else is carrying food." I tucked the envelope against my side. "East Reception Room. Second hallway, first door after the portrait gallery. Do not enter the ballroom. I know how directions work. Claire, I will not enter the ballroom. 5 minutes later, I entered the ballroom. In my defense, Hale Manor had more hallways than my entire apartment building, and every portrait seemed to be judging me personally. I followed a sign marked East Wing, opened a carved wooden door, and stepped into a wash of golden light. The quartet swelled. Hundreds of faces turned in shifting fragments. A photographer lifted his camera. A woman wearing emeralds smiled at me as if we had met before. I froze with one hand still on the door. This was not the East reception room. This was the center of the gala. I tried to retreat, but an older gentleman had already approached. Miss Bennett, he asked, glancing at the small card still pinned to my dress. We have been expecting the representative from Boston. I am not. A woman touched his arm. Arthur, do not interrogate her in the doorway. Come, dear. Your seat is waiting. Before I could explain, they guided me through the crowd. People smiled. One man offered me champagne. Another asked whether my family still owned property near Beacon Hill. The same guest who had looked through me in uniform now stepped aside to let me pass. The dress had not changed my face. It had changed their permission to see it. I should have corrected them. I meant to. Then I noticed the envelope in my hand. The wax seal had cracked. A sheet of heavy paper had slipped partly free. At the top was a list of donations. Near the bottom, one name had been crossed out in red ink. Grant Hale. Beside it, someone had written $12 million. Your seat, the woman announced. I looked up. At the head of the longest table sat a man in a black tuxedo, perfectly still while the room moved around him. Roman Hale did not need an introduction. Power had a posture, and his was effortless. Dark hair, calm gray eyes, one hand resting beside an untouched glass. The chair beside him was empty. Mine, apparently. As I approached, his gaze moved from my face to the server's shoes beneath the silver dress. He knew immediately. I saw it in the slight narrowing of his eyes. I sat because every person nearby was watching. Roman turned toward me slowly. You are not the representative from Boston, he said, his voice low enough that no one else could hear. No, you are staff. Yes. His eyes shifted to the envelope. For the first time, the calm in his expression changed. Not fear. Recognition. He leaned closer as applause began near the stage. Whatever is inside that envelope, he murmured. Do not let my family see it. The applause around us rose like a wave, but Roman did not look toward the stage. His eyes remained on the envelope in my hand, calm and unreadable, while every instinct inside me screamed that I should stand, apologize, and find the nearest exit. What is this? I whispered. Something you were never supposed to carry into this room. I tightened my fingers around the cream-colored paper. Evelyn told me it was the final donor list. It probably was when she received it. That answer did nothing to slow my heartbeat. At the front of the ballroom, Victoria Hale stepped behind a crystal podium and welcomed the guests to a century of service, leadership, and family tradition. Her voice was warm, practiced, the kind of warmth that belonged to someone who had never wondered whether the electricity would still be on when she got home. Roman reached for his water glass without taking his eyes off me. Place the envelope beneath your napkin. Why? Because Grant is watching it. I lowered the envelope into my lap, covered it with the folded linen napkin, then let my gaze drift toward the opposite end of the table. Grant Hale was speaking to a silver-haired man beside him. I recognized the man from Evelyn's description. Richard Alden, the person who was supposed to receive the envelope. Grant wore a navy tuxedo and an easy smile designed to survive photographs. When our eyes met, the smile remained. The warmth disappeared. He knows I have it, I said. He suspects. That is not better. No, Roman replied. It is not. A server approached with wine. I recognized him from the staff briefing. A college student named Daniel Ruiz who had spent the first hour of the shift worried he would spill something on a senator. He stopped beside me and hesitated. In uniform, he would have whispered my name and asked whether I was all right. In the silver dress, he lowered his head and said, Would you care for anything, ma'am? The word struck harder than it should have. Water, please. He filled my glass without recognizing me, then moved on. Roman noticed. Of course he did. He seemed to notice everything. You find that offensive, he said. I find it educational. Explain. 30 minutes ago, nobody at this table would have remembered my face. Now they are asking about my family, my education, and whether I spend my summers in Maine. The corner of his mouth shifted, not quite becoming a smile. Do you? I spent last summer working night shifts at St. Matthew's Medical Center. That was not my question. It was my answer. For the first time, he looked almost amused. It vanished quickly, but I saw it. Dinner service began. Around us, guests discussed foundations, elections, and vacation homes as casually as my classmates discussed coffee orders. A woman across from me leaned forward. Miss Bennett, Arthur tells me you represent the Boston office. Arthur is mistaken. Roman lifted his glass. Miss Bennett is here as my guest. The woman paused. That one sentence changed everything. Her posture softened. Her smile grew brighter. Of course. How wonderful. Roman rarely brings anyone to these events. Heat rose into my face. I am not here with him. She arrived independently, Roman said. I simply asked her to remain. The woman seemed delighted by an answer that explained nothing. She began telling me about a private nursing scholarship funded by the Hale Foundation, unaware that I had applied for it twice and never received so much as a rejection letter. Beneath the table, my hand stayed pressed against the hidden envelope. You could use this misunderstanding, Roman said when the woman turned away. For what? Access. Introductions. Opportunities. You mean pretending I belong here? Everyone in this room is pretending something. That does not make it honest. He studied me with the same focused stillness he had used when he first noticed my shoes. Most people would allow the mistake to continue. Most people have not spent years being ignored until they put on someone else's dress. Roman set his glass down. They are treating you well. They are treating the dress well. His gaze moved over the room as if he were seeing the guest from a different distance. And that matters to you. It should matter to you. The words escaped before I could soften them. Men like Roman Hale were probably not accustomed to being corrected by women carrying overdue tuition notices in their purses. I waited for anger. None came. Why? He asked. I looked toward Daniel as he cleared a plate from a guest who never acknowledged him. Because respect that disappears with a uniform was never respect. Roman said nothing for several seconds. Then Victoria announced that the auction would begin in 20 minutes, and the room broke into movement. Roman rose beside me. Bring the envelope. Where are we going? Somewhere Grant cannot watch every move you make. Before we could leave, Grant crossed the room toward us. His smile had returned. Roman, he said, you have not introduced me to your guest. Roman stepped slightly between us. The movement was small enough to appear accidental. It was not. Claire Bennett, he said. Grant extended his hand. A pleasure. I shook it because refusing would have drawn attention. His grip was polite. His eyes were not. Have we met before? He asked. No, you look familiar. I work events. Perhaps you have ignored me at another one. Roman turned his face away, but I caught the briefest flicker of approval. Grant's smile tightened. Enjoy the evening, Claire. He walked toward a narrow corridor beside the stage. Richard Alden followed him. Roman started toward the opposite door, but I heard my name whispered behind me. I stopped. Grant and Alden had paused beyond the curtain, separating the ballroom from the corridor. Their voices carried through the small gap between the fabric and the wall. She has the revised list, Alden said. Then recover it. Roman is watching her. A pause. Then Grant spoke. The working records must be replaced before midnight. No drafts. No access logs. Nothing that contradicts the official archive. Alden lowered his voice. That leaves less than 2 hours. Then stop wasting time. My breath caught. Roman had not heard the words, but he saw their effect on my face. What did he say? Grant stepped back into the ballroom and found me watching. His expression did not change. That frightened me more than anger would have. He said the working records have to disappear before midnight. Roman became completely still. Around us, laughter rose from the auction displays. Cameras flashed. Music continued. Yet the space near him felt suddenly silent. Which records? He did not say. Grant took one slow step toward us. Roman placed his hand along the back of my chair, not touching me, but forming the unmistakable shape of protection. Several nearby guests noticed. So did Grant. Roman leaned close enough that only I could hear him. You walked into the wrong room, Claire. His gaze remained fixed on his cousin. And now someone is afraid of what you heard. Grant approached with the patient confidence of a man who believed every room would eventually obey him. Is there a problem? He asked. Not yet, Roman said. Grant looked at me. Then perhaps Claire would like to join the auction. We are about to present the foundation's largest contribution of the evening. I thought of his name crossed out in red. I think I have seen enough generosity for one night, I said. His smile held, but his eyes sharpened. That sounds almost insulting. Only if the generosity is not real. Before he could answer, a woman's voice cut through the room. Roman. Victoria Hale approached in a black gown that moved around her like a shadow. Silver gleamed at her throat. Her expression was pleasant from a distance and exacting up close. She looked at Roman first, Grant second, and me last. Her gaze traveled from the borrowed dress to the service shoes beneath it. Recognition arrived slowly. Disbelief followed. Who is this? She asked. Roman answered before I could. Claire Bennett. That is not what I asked. Evelyn appeared near the ballroom entrance, her face pale. She had finally found me. Miss Bennett, Victoria said. Were you assigned to this table? No. Were you invited to this event? No. Conversations nearby began to thin. Guests turned without appearing to turn. Wealthy people had mastered the ability to watch someone fall apart while pretending to admire the flowers. Victoria's gaze dropped to the name card still pinned near my shoulder. You are employed here for the evening, and yet you are wearing a guest's dress, sitting at my family's table, and carrying confidential materials. Grant stepped closer. A misunderstanding, I am sure. His voice sounded generous now. Helpful. The envelope was given to me by the event manager, I said. I was told to deliver it to Richard Alden in the East reception room. Victoria looked toward Evelyn. Is that true? Yes, Mrs. Hale. Claire's uniform was damaged, and I asked her to make the delivery while it dried. In a couture gown? It was the only available replacement. A few guests smiled behind their glasses. Victoria turned back to me. And when you entered the wrong room, you decided to remain? I tried to explain. To whom? I looked toward Arthur. He stared at his plate. The woman beside him became fascinated by the auction catalog. No one wanted to hear the explanation, I said. They preferred the story the dress told them. Victoria's expression hardened. This is not a philosophy class, Miss Bennett. No. In a philosophy class, people usually listen before deciding what someone is worth. A hush spread outward from our table. Victoria lowered her voice. You have embarrassed this family. I did not tell anyone I belonged to it. Grant sighed as though disappointed by my stubbornness. Then he spoke loudly enough for the nearby guests to hear. Perhaps we should confirm that nothing else was taken in the confusion. My stomach tightened. Nothing was taken. Then you will not object to showing us what is in your purse. I reached for the small black purse beneath my chair. Roman's voice stopped me. No, Victoria looked at him. This concerns the security of the foundation. It concerns your need to make an example of someone who cannot damage you. Grant pointed toward the envelope hidden beneath my napkin. She already has confidential material. Material she was instructed to deliver, Roman said. Victoria's attention returned to me. Open the purse. My hands were trembling. I hated that they could see it. I hated even more that part of me wanted Roman to end the humiliation with a single word. That was how power became addictive. It made pain disappear so quickly that you could forget what it cost. I stood. I will open it. Roman's eyes met mine. Claire, I do not need anyone wondering what I stole. I placed the purse on the table and removed each item slowly. My cracked phone, apartment keys, peppermint gum, my nursing school identification card, a folded tuition statement stamped past due in red letters, a prescription bottle with my mother's name printed across the label, $3.42 in loose change. The room watched as my life appeared beneath the chandeliers, small and ordinary and painfully exposed. There were no diamonds, no stolen invitations, no secrets except the kind poor people carried every day. Satisfied? Roman asked. Victoria did not answer. I looked at the guests who had welcomed me when they thought I came from money. Not one of them could meet my eyes. 10 minutes ago, you asked about my education, I said to the woman across from me. You told me the foundation cared about students like me. Her lips parted, but no words came. I turned to Victoria. When you believed I was important, you offered me a seat. Now that you know I work for you, you will not even let me stand without proving I deserve to be here. You do not deserve to be here, she said. Something inside me stopped shaking. I removed the guest bracelet from my wrist and placed it beside the tuition notice. The dress made you respect me for 10 minutes, I said. The uniform made you forget I was human. Victoria signaled toward security. Two employees near the wall began walking toward us. Roman moved before they reached me. He pulled his chair away from the table, turned it toward the center of the room, and placed one hand on its back. Every conversation stopped. Even the quartet fell silent. "Sit down, Claire," he said. I stared at him. "Roman," Victoria warned. He did not look at her. His eyes remained on mine. There was no command in them now, only a choice. I sat. Roman faced the room, his voice calm enough to make everyone listen. "No one searches my guest." The silence that followed felt heavier than the music that had stopped. Roman did not raise his voice. He did not need to. "The auction will continue in 10 minutes, he said. "Grant, see to our guests. Victoria, I need the West Library." Victoria's expression tightened. "This is my event. It is our foundation. And we have a discrepancy that cannot wait." Roman held out his hand for the envelope. He did not take it from me. He waited. That small pause mattered. I placed the envelope in his palm. "Claire comes with me," he said. We crossed the ballroom, while the quartet slowly began playing again. Roman opened a narrow hallway hidden behind a paneled wall and led me away from the lights. The West Library was 2 stories high, lined with dark shelves and old portraits. Rain traced silver lines down the windows. Roman closed the door and placed the donor list on a table beneath a brass lamp. "This figure was added after the final internal review," he said. "Grant announced the $12 million contribution publicly last month. But the money never arrived." "Correct." Roman opened a secured cabinet and removed 3 working binders. "These are preliminary operating records. They are not enough to prove misconduct, but they may show where an independent auditor should look." Payments just below $50,000 appeared every few weeks, always connected to temporary vendors, floral companies, catering groups, medical transportation services. I pointed to a payment assigned to Briarwood Clinical Staffing. This company lists a mailbox store in Queens as its office. Nursing agencies require state registration and a license number. Neither appears here. I scanned another entry. This transportation company claims to operate 6 ambulances, but its annual insurance expense is lower than what my mother pays to insure one used sedan. Roman sat across from me. "You know financial records? I know what medical care costs when insurance refuses to cover it." Several employee names appeared beneath the vendor accounts. Daniel Ruiz, Evelyn Brooks, Marcus Dean. "These are staff members. They may have approved the payments," Roman said. "Or someone used their names because nobody would believe them if they denied it." He became still. "Why would they not be believed?" I met his eyes. "You watch what happened to me in the ballroom." He looked down at the signatures again. "Grant oversees vendor approvals. Alden manages the foundation's financial reporting. Victoria signs annual summaries without reviewing individual accounts." Then one person did not create this problem alone. No, it survived because everyone trusted the names at the top and ignored the names at the bottom. Roman closed the binder. "You should leave the property while Foundation Counsel secures the records." "No. Claire, Grant knows you heard him. I am not abandoning Evelyn and the employees whose names are in these files. My security team can protect them. The same team that approached me when Victoria ordered my purse searched." His jaw tightened. "That will not happen again. You cannot promise safety while your family still controls the rules." Roman walked to the window. "There is a secure residence 12 miles north of here." "You mean hide me? Protect you?" "Protection without choice is another kind of prison." He turned. "In my world, control and safety are often the same thing. Then your world taught you the wrong lesson." The fire cracked softly behind us. I prepared myself for another order. Instead, he asked, "What do you need from me?" The question was so unexpected that I almost did not answer. Access to staff schedules, vendor invoices, delivery logs, and the names of the outside auditor and foundation attorney. Why the attorney? Because if we find evidence, it has to be preserved properly. Photographs on my phone will show us where to look, but they will not replace an independent investigation. Roman nodded. "What else?" "No one gets accused tonight based only on what we think we see." Agreed. He called the Foundation's outside counsel and instructed her to place an immediate document preservation hold on financial records, electronic access logs, and archived video. He then contacted an independent accounting firm already used by another Hale charity and requested an emergency preliminary review. When he finished, he handed me a small black phone. This connects directly to me and the head of security. I set it back on the table. I already have a phone. Yours has a cracked screen and 3% battery. You noticed that? I notice what other people miss. Then start noticing the people who work for you. Something changed in his expression. I am trying. We built the plan in 20 minutes. Roman would return to the ballroom and keep Grant occupied during the auction. I would change into my dry uniform, meet Evelyn in the staff office, and compare schedules with the questionable signatures. Roman opened the library door. Do not trust anyone wearing a Hale family pin. I looked at the silver emblem on his lapel. That includes you. Especially me. I returned through the service corridor, changed back into my uniform, and folded the silver dress over my arm. The fabric felt lighter now, as if the illusion had finally released me. I had just reached the staff office when Victoria appeared at the end of the hall with 2 security employees and Grant beside her. Claire Bennett, she called. Stop. Grant held up a leather folder stamped with the foundation seal. Working records are missing from the finance room. Security has been instructed to inspect all staff storage areas. My coat hung 3 feet away. One security employee opened the pocket and removed a sealed packet of financial documents. The corridor went silent. Grant looked at me with perfect disappointment. I was hoping you would prove us wrong. The packet in his hand might as well have been a confession written in my name. Evelyn stood frozen beside the office door. Grant opened the packet. These were removed from the finance room less than 15 minutes ago. They were found in your coat. I did not put them there. Of course not, he said gently. You entered a private gala under false pretenses, accessed confidential information, and then disappeared into restricted areas with Roman. I entered the ballroom by mistake. A mistake that benefited you. Evelyn stepped forward. Claire was with me before dinner. She never went near the finance room. Victoria dismissed her with a glance. You provided the dress and the envelope. Your judgment is already in question. Roman appeared at the far end of the corridor. Grant held up the packet. We found the missing records in Claire's coat. Roman stopped beside me. I expected him to expose the trap. Instead, he looked at the documents, then at me. His face gave me nothing. Did you take them? He asked. No. Did anyone see who approached your coat? No. Grant folded his arms. Then we have the records, the opportunity, and no other explanation. Roman's gaze remained on mine. Claire Bennett is no longer under my protection, he said. The corridor seemed to tilt. I had known him for less than 2 hours. I had no right to feel betrayed. Yet the feeling arrived anyway, cold and immediate. Security will escort her from the public areas, Roman continued. There will be no police report and no public accusation until counsel reviews the evidence. Victoria looked displeased. Theft from the foundation requires a formal response. You will have one after an independent review. His voice ended the discussion. One security employee gestured toward the service exit. I lifted my chin and looked at Roman. You could have asked what happened. I did. No. You asked after deciding what everyone else needed to believe. Something flickered in his expression. Leave, Claire. I walked away before he could see how badly my hands were shaking. We passed the kitchen, the loading dock, and the staff exit. One guard stopped beside the door. You may leave now, he said quietly. Or you may read what Mr. Hale placed in your purse. The decision is yours. Inside my purse was the black phone I had left in the library. A message glowed across the screen. I should have trusted you with the plan. I could not warn you without risking the records, but protecting you did not give me the right to use your fear. You may leave. If you choose to stay, Evelyn is waiting near the linen room. East Archive Room. 20 minutes. Beneath the phone lay a brass key and a folded staff map. Anger did not disappear. It changed shape. Roman had used my real reaction because a real betrayal looked more convincing than a performance. He knew it was wrong. More importantly, he had left the next decision to me. I looked at the exit. Rain swept across the courtyard beyond it. I could walk out. Nobody would stop me. Then I thought of Evelyn's name in the ledger. Daniels. Marcus's. People Grant had chosen because he believed their voices carried no weight. I closed the door. Take me to the linen room. Evelyn ran toward me the moment she saw me. I left your coat unattended for less than a minute, she said. That was enough. Her fears shifted into focus when I showed her the message. The East Archive Room is behind the old catering office, she said. Staff schedules are stored there. Then we need more than paperwork. We need people. We found Daniel first. He had been assigned to the north dining room on a date when records claimed he approved a payment from the foundation office 3 floors away. Marcus Dean, a maintenance worker, had supposedly signed for medical equipment while attending his daughter's graduation in New Jersey. 2 kitchen employees had their names attached to companies they had never heard of. Within 10 minutes, 6 employees stood around the archive table comparing schedules, pay stubs, delivery receipts, and signatures. The pattern became impossible to ignore. Grant had not simply moved money. He had built the scheme on names he believed nobody important would defend. "This is why he chose us," Daniel said. "Because if we complained, they would assume we were confused. Then we make the facts impossible to dismiss," I said. The brass key opened a cabinet behind a row of old event files. Inside were carbon copies of delivery logs stamped with dates, times, and locations. One claimed a medical shipment entered Hale Manor at 3:16 in the morning. Another listed a truck that never appeared in the handwritten gate register. The digital camera system would show every vehicle, Evelyn said. Daniel pulled out his phone. "The system is maintained by an outside security company. Their administrator is on call tonight." He contacted the administrator, gave him the event authorization number printed beside the archive terminal, and asked him to preserve the off-site backup. 10 minutes later, Roman received written confirmation that no vehicle connected to the medical vendor had entered the property on the listed date. The administrator also confirmed that someone using Richard Alden's credentials had attempted to delete the local access log less than an hour earlier. I called Roman. We found conflicting schedules and delivery records. The security company preserved the backups. Alden's credentials were used in an attempted deletion. "Foundation counsel is with Alden now," Roman said. "He has surrendered his devices and agreed to provide a statement. Grant is heading toward the East Wing. Does he know? He knows the records have been secured." Evelyn looked through the archive window. Footsteps echoed in the corridor. Grant appeared at the far end. He stopped when he saw me. "Roman told you to leave. He gave me a choice. Then you made the wrong one." Behind me, employees photographed their own schedules and sent copies to Foundation Counsel. I held up the delivery log. "You used the wrong names." Grant's eyes dropped to the paper. His confidence failed for the first time that night. He turned toward the archive room, but 2 security employees stepped into view. They did not touch him. "Mr. Hale," one said, "Foundation Counsel has suspended access to all financial and archive areas. You may return to the ballroom or leave the property. You may not remove documents or Foundation equipment." Grant looked toward the staircase. His car and personal belongings remained available to him. No door had been locked. No one was holding him inside. But leaving now would not erase the records. Roman appeared at the top of the stairs. "The final presentation begins now," he said. Grant lifted his chin. "This is a misunderstanding. Then you will have an opportunity to respond through counsel and the independent review." Before we returned to the ballroom, Roman stopped beside me. The others continued ahead. "I should have trusted you with the plan," he said. "You should have." I believed surprising Grant required a genuine reaction. "You were right." I met his eyes. "That does not make what you did right." "No, it does not." The apology carried no excuse. "Protecting you did not give me the right to use your fear." "Then never do it again." "I will not. And do not speak for me in that room." "What do you want me to do?" "Give the employees the same chance to speak that you would give a donor." Roman nodded. "Done." We entered through the main ballroom doors. Conversation stopped as guests noticed the uniformed employees walking beside the head of the Hale family. Victoria stood near the podium, her expression rigid. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Correcting the program," Roman replied. He stepped onto the stage. Behind him, the Foundation's gold emblem glowed on a large screen. "For 100 years," he began, "my family has placed its name on hospitals, schools, and charities. Tonight, we plan to celebrate that name. Instead, I need to disclose serious financial discrepancies that require an independent investigation." A murmur traveled through the room. Victoria moved toward the stage. "Roman, this is neither the time nor the place." It became the place when Foundation money was represented to donors in this room. He held up the revised donor list. A $12 million contribution was publicly attributed to Grant Hale. The Foundation's bank records show that the contribution was never received. Grant stepped into the aisle. "An accounting delay proves nothing." "That is correct," Roman said, which is why no final conclusion will be announced tonight. However, Foundation Council has identified false vendor records, disputed employee signatures, conflicting delivery logs, and an attempted deletion made with Richard Alden's credentials. Mr. Alden has surrendered his devices and is cooperating with outside counsel. Roman displayed only 3 examples on the screen. A staff schedule showing Daniel was working in the North Dining Room when he supposedly approved a payment from the Foundation office. A delivery record for a vehicle that never appeared at the gate. A vendor account linked to an address that belonged to a commercial mailbox store. Daniel stood beside me, breathing too quickly. "You do not have to speak," I whispered. He looked toward the stage. "That is what they counted on." He walked forward. His voice trembled at first, but it did not break. "That is my name on the form," he said. "It is not my signature. I have never had access to the Foundation office, and I have never approved a vendor payment." Marcus spoke next. Evelyn followed. One by one, people who had spent the evening moving silently between tables stood beneath the chandeliers and described where they had actually been when their names were used. No one looked through them now. Grant stepped farther into the aisle. "These employees do not understand Foundation accounting." I raised the original delivery log. "We understand dates." Every face turned toward me. I walked to the stage in my black uniform and worn service shoes. The silver dress was gone, but this time nobody mistook me for invisible. This record claims a medical shipment entered the East Gate at 3:16 in the morning. The off-site camera backup shows no vehicle. Briarwood Clinical Staffing has no state license listed in the records, no physical office, and no verified operating history. Those facts do not prove the entire case tonight. They prove that an independent investigation is necessary and that the employees named in these files deserve to be heard. Grant looked at me. "You are a nursing student, not an auditor." "No," I said. "I am someone who knows what medical care costs when the money is real." Roman returned to the podium. "Effective immediately, Grant is suspended from all Foundation duties and from any Hale business responsibilities under my direct authority. His electronic access has been frozen. The boards overseeing the remaining entities have been called into emergency session. Outside counsel and an independent accounting firm will preserve and review the evidence. If that review confirms unlawful conduct, the findings will be delivered to the appropriate authorities." Victoria looked at Roman. "Handle this privately." His expression did not change. Privacy protected the family. It did not protect the Foundation. Grant looked around the ballroom, waiting for an ally. No one moved. He chose to leave with his attorney. Security did not touch him. They documented the devices and Foundation materials he surrendered, then opened the door. His gaze reached me last. He still seemed unable to understand how a waitress had become the person he could not silence. When the door closed, Roman faced the guests again. "Anyone who prefers reputation to accountability is free to leave." A few people did. Most remained. Roman stepped away from the podium and looked at me. "Claire Bennett, I would like you to help design a permanent community advisory council for the Foundation." Applause began near the back of the room. I raised one hand, and it faded. "Not as a favor," I said. "No," Roman answered. "As paid work, under a public charter approved by the independent board. The council needs nurses, teachers, service employees, scholarship applicants, and families who receive Foundation support. It needs access to grant reports, protection for whistleblowers, and the right to publish concerns." "Agreed, subject to formal board approval. And the council cannot report directly to you." A quiet smile touched his face. "Especially not to me." 3 months later, the independent accounting firm issued its preliminary report. It confirmed that millions of dollars had been routed through false vendors over several years. Grant remained suspended while the boards, attorneys, and authorities handled the findings through the proper process. Richard Alden admitted that he had altered donor documents and access records under Grant's direction. His cooperation did not erase what he had done, but it closed the loose thread that had begun with the envelope meant for him. The Foundation adopted a public oversight charter. Employees received formal reporting protections. Evelyn became Senior Director of Event Operations after an independent review confirmed she had followed procedure the night of the gala. Daniel completed his degree without working every weekend. I joined the new community council as a paid, part-time nursing student representative. I did not manage audits. I asked the questions that people inside conference rooms often forgot to ask. Who receives the money? Who is missing from the table? Who pays the price when nobody checks? The review also uncovered something personal. Both of my scholarship applications had been marked incomplete despite containing every required document. They had never reached the scholarship committee because one of the false administrative accounts had redirected dozens of applications away from programs Grant considered unimportant. The independent committee reconsidered them under the original criteria and awarded me the merit scholarship I had already earned. It covered my final semester and reimbursed the tuition payment I had borrowed to stay enrolled. Roman did not pay my debt. He made sure the system returned what it had denied me. My mother's prescription still sat beside our kitchen sink, but I no longer had to choose between filling it and paying the electric bill. On graduation morning, I crossed the stage at Lincoln Center in a navy cap and gown. My mother cried loudly enough for 3 rows to hear. Evelyn cheered beside her. When I looked toward the back, I found Roman sitting alone in the final row. No private section, no family entourage, no one standing to open doors for him. After the ceremony, he waited near the stone steps while families crowded around us with flowers and cameras. "You came," I said. "You invited me. I expected you to sit closer." He looked back through the glass doors. "That seat was available. You could have made a call." I could have. Rain had begun to fall, soft and warm against the plaza. Roman opened an umbrella but did not move it over me until I stepped beside him by choice. "Why did you not?" I asked. He looked at me with the same gray eyes that had recognized my shoes beneath a borrowed dress. They were different now. Or perhaps I had learned to see what existed beneath the control. "Because you taught me that a seat means nothing if I did not earn it." I smiled. "That lesson sounds expensive." It was. He looked toward my mother and Evelyn waiting at the curb. "Walk with me." This time, it was a question, not an order. And this time, I said yes. We crossed the plaza together while the city moved around us, loud and ordinary and alive. Roman Hale still carried enough power to silence a ballroom. But he no longer confused silence with respect. He ruled a family whose influence reached every corner of the city. I had worn their dress for one night. Somehow, I became the reason he changed what power meant.